Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining the show today. Today, we have a whole bunch of different AI topics to cover with you, but in that group is I know I definitely want to talk about OpenAI. There's some buzz lately this week about, are they going to build a LinkedIn killer, but what does that mean even beyond LinkedIn? So I definitely want to talk about that. Andy's got some news and stories about Apple and Siri and what they finally decided to do in terms of the future of Siri and search and what that means for 2026. Jumi wants to talk a little bit about FDA and new drugs that are being AI created, and the first one that's going to make it out to trials. That and a whole lot more is coming up on the show today. So thanks for being with us. This is the Daily AI Show. Today is September 5th, 2025. And as I said, I'm joined by Jumi and Andy, and I'm Brian. We'll see if Carl pops in the door here today as well. But right now, you got the three of us. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Jude and Greg and Justin are all here. Morning to all y'all. If you have any, Greg already says bye-bye LinkedIn. We'll see. We'll talk about that for sure, because I think it's bigger than that is what I'll say. I think it's bigger than just LinkedIn or anything. It's really about the big conversation about what is OpenAI trying to do when they build a platform to rule them all, and what does that mean? Are they trying to be Microsoft? Are they trying to be Google? We'll get into that a little bit here in a second. Also, and I'm just realizing I probably don't have it up on here. Let me look really quick. Sorry. Well, we'll get back to that. I wanted to talk about, obviously, we've been talking the last 2 days, but I want to make sure we mention it again about the Create conference that's coming up with She Leads AI. You guys already know Anne, who has come in and been a great co-host with us from time to time. She Leads AI, and they're doing their first in-person conference called Create. I will go and get those dates and make sure we share those along with you guys as well. But we highly recommend checking that out. If you're a woman, if you're a woman leader wanting to learn more about AI, this is going to be the conference for you. And you can actually get $100 off by using a coupon code that they set up for us, which is really nice of them to do. We are more than happy to support it. That coupon code is going to be DAIS, DAIS 100 for $100 off. So I'll make sure all that goes into the chat. We'll also make sure we mention it again on the show, since I obviously wasn't prepared with the copy in front of me here. I forgot about it as we were getting going. Okay, that's all the intro that I wanted to do. I'd love to throw it over to Andy or Jumi. What would you guys like to talk about first? FDA creating AI drugs or approving AI drugs, I suppose, or do we want to talk about Siri and Apple? Maybe they're getting their act together. I don't know which one.
No,
What's juicier?
I can dismiss the Apple one pretty quickly. Um, and I don't mean to be dismissive about Apple, but there's just been such a, here, then there, then forward and backward kind of swirl around Apple. And what are they doing to improve the basic AI functions that should be a part of that OS system, both Mac OS and iOS. Well, anyway, just for context, two major things. One is, Apple has been criticized widely and long for not making headway in Apple Intelligence. And then there's rumors surrounding all that. Oh, they're in talks with Perplexity. Oh, they're in talks with Gemini. And now, even just 10 days ago, it seemed like, Apple has made a decision that they're going to integrate Gemini into Apple in some way in the near term. The other point of information that's important here is that Google was just released from their antitrust suit, but there were two major restrictions there. One was they had to yield up their search index basically to any other competitor that wanted to take a look at the full range of what Google has indexed. And again, in this antitrust context, they can no longer make exclusive deals using their money to not force, but to provide an exclusive Google only search capability to Apple and others. And Apple is the one that is the major source of Google search revenue, because they are the default search engine, and you can add a different browser and you can add different search as an application. But if you're using Safari or you're just using Siri, Google was behind the scenes in that one. So now, just today, for the first time, I read that they've announced that they're going to, need to have something proprietary, and they plan to build and are building. Perhaps they're already well advanced and about to deliver a search capability that will rival Perplexity and OpenAI in AI search. So it's going to be a part of Siri. So Siri is going to have an Apple built. Maybe all their conversations with Perplexity and others were about, oh, let us figure out what we have to do in order to make sure that we're at parity with what we could do if we acquired and or collaborated with one of these players. But the news today, Apple's going to have their own AI search.
Yeah, it's amazing to me why they don't just, I mean, I know it's not this easy, but Apple's sitting on a mountain of cash. Buy Perplexity. Buy
Yeah,
Perplexity and
I was
integrate
hopeful
it.
about that.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I
like,
thought that.
holy moly, would that I mean, it would rocket ship their ability to do really, really amazing search when we've all been talking about Perplexity. And by the way, I think Perplexity put out a bid for Google, right? So not Google, but for
Chrome,
like
yeah.
the Chrome, right? Not all of Google, not all of Alphabet, but for Chrome for some ungodly billions of dollars. And they said they had investors lined up to it, which I talked about on the show, and I appreciated that kind of level of gumption from Perplexity. It makes me think they're my kind of people, like, because Perplexity is not that big comparatively, not that big of a company, and I just love the idea that they're like, hey, we'll take that NFL team. Yeah, no, we got it, no problem. It's just they're like playing with the big players, and I like that. I like that. That's wherever that's coming from in their leadership.
Oh, on Apple, by the way,
Yeah, go ahead.
Good news for Apple. They've been pressured by the U.S. government not to work in China anymore, and the argument is that by making huge investments in production facilities over there for the iPhone, the full range of iPhones, they have basically transferred manufacturing technology and skill over to China, and now China owns that. And so their fallback to that was they immediately started to move their operations over to India. But then, of course, the government put a 50% tariff on everything that was going on in India. But the good news for Apple is that internally in India, which is a very large population, their iPhone sales have now reached 9 billion annually, and that was an increase of 13% over the prior year. So
amazing.
they're selling well over there. Can they manufacture over there? Hard to say, but can they manufacture in the United States? No, we don't have the skills. We don't have the leadership. We don't have anything like what can be done in China and India. And it would take years to do it. And when it was all said and done, it's reputed that an iPhone would be costing around $3,500 for the US manufactured version.
Yeah, that's the main thing is like, even if you could you even come close to the price, right? I mean, it would just cost an incredible amount more unless they had, whatever government help or subsidies or however that works to it. This is still dummy me sitting here with the 16 because I bought into the I drank the Kool-Aid last year, and I'm still annoyed by that because I upgraded for no other reason. I think I went from a 14 to a 16, and at the time, it was 15 Pro, or you had to have a 16 to have Apple Intelligence. Even when I watched the hype cycle of what they're talking about Apple Intelligence, I was like, all right, but okay, but also yes. And I was really, at that point, we didn't really know how it was going to integrate with ChatGPT. I find that to be extremely hokey and bulky and problematic because it's like it wants to stop and ask. And I would rather just have a default answer to, if I ask Siri, then I get ChatGPT. Like that would be the best scenario for me, is like Siri just routes it right through without stopping to ask me about sharing data. And I get why that's there, but I would love a good kill switch on that on my phone that says, unless I say otherwise, it's good to go, because it'll just streamline me actually being able to use it. And that didn't happen, at least for me. And so now they've come out with like the 16 S1, and of course we'll have the 17 here. Well, it's September, so it'll probably be in the next 2 weeks. I don't know. Have they even announced that event yet? It's usually mid to late September, right?
I don't know what the date is, but it's weeks away.
And I'm sure they will hype the what out of whatever the 17 can do. And so on and so forth. So we'll see. I mean, I'm disappointed in it. I would love Apple to get their act together. I mean, I missed the show, but I was watching a bit of the replay when you were talking about the was the Pixel 10.
Pixel 10. Yeah,
And
Pixel
and
10.
Andy, I mean, like I said this to you in the Slack channel. That's was one of our top rated, top liked shorts and TikToks that went out. I think YouTube shorts. I didn't look at TikTok, but I mean, I think that goes to show you, one, you were talking about a specific upgrade to a product, and that's going to do well. We know that with the analytics. But two, I actually think it's that a lot of people are more than ever genuinely interested in what the alternatives to Apple are. I would put myself in that category. I've been, not that I don't love Androids, but I've always just said, like, if I'm the guy in the house that has to fix all the phones and tells you where my daughter and my wife, because my daughter and my wife aren't going to do that, it's going to fall on my plate. I was like, everybody has to have the same phones. If I have to be responsible, everybody has to have the same phone, so I understand the OS to it, But my wife, truthfully, would have moved over to an Android a long time ago had she wanted to take on the responsibility of also maintaining and all those kind of things. And I said, it's too hard in the house. Apple sharing, there's a lot of benefits to it. I don't know. I feel like some of those walls are crumbling a little bit.
Yeah, I think I
You
have
know,
the same concerns, but I'm feeling like, how often is it really that I do a FaceTime? you know,
yeah.
and I won't be able to do that anymore, but that's a rare occasion.
And
And
there's some
and most of
alternative.
my use of my phone is all personal and private. Like I'm working on that screen. Um, so Pixel 10 rising. It's rising over there in the
Yeah.
probability that I'm going to have that as my next phone.
By the way, I'll say this just as a dad of a teenager. I don't think I realized how big of a deal Snapchat still was. Like, Snapchat to me, it's kind of like, and Snapchat or whatever. But like in my
Yeah.
daughter's life, Snapchat is a massive part of the way she communicates with her friends and stuff like that. I always kind of forget that they're still there. We don't talk about them very often, but they are holding ground, man. I feel like, Kim Kardashian 10 years ago was like down with Snapchat or whatever. She put out a post about it. Like, they're still kicking. They still got their filters. My daughter uses it all the time. That's how she has. It's basically how we would use, not WeWork. Dang it, WeChat. No,
Facebook.
no. What's the WhatsApp? Shoot, I had to look on my phone to find it. Like how I would use WhatsApp in multiple groups and stuff like that, and with especially with family that lives overseas, it's going to be WhatsApp over like Facebook Messenger. Same company, obviously, but anyway, just
By the way, yeah,
neither here nor
Snapchat,
there, but it's a big deal.
for a retrospective, Snapchat really took hold with a totally different feature than the way it's used today as a primary means of communication. And
Yep.
what it was kids could take a picture and send it to someone else, but it would expire in 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So it would go away. So that allowed them to do some very, like crazy things. The simplest of which was to really take a picture of them making an ugly, ugly face,
Right. Yeah.
which couldn't be shared. And then Snapchat had to put in some kind of warning about
Yeah.
taking screenshots of it, and
Yeah.
so it became a viral hit, and really, really commanded the installed base of the young crowd out there, sending sometimes sexy pictures, to someone else, but that would expire immediately. And that's not the way Snapchat's used anymore. I don't even know if that feature exists in Snapchat, but
I would
that
imagine.
got them the place that they have, which is a multi-billion-dollar company that is, used largely by the younger generations.
I would say so. I mean, I think it's their filters. If I had to guess, like I would always knew Snapchat had like the best filters. They would come out with the best, even really before AI really, really kicked off. It seemed like they always had the filters thing that was like definitely part of the technology. Didn't Snapchat also have glasses at one point? I mean, they've done some kind of crazy things and tried to get into actual physical products and stuff like that. But they sort of have always been at the forefront of, like, even before AI, I felt like Snapchat was like had their finger on the pulse of what the generation was going to want to do. So it's interesting to me. And yes, I do remember that back when I owned the CrossFit gym. One of the things I actually looked at, because somebody had sort of done this, was I don't remember the specifics of it, but basically based on what Snapchat was good at, you could actually use it for like a coupon redeeming system for clients. So like you could actually do something where a CrossFit member of mine, if I wanted to do a collab with like the local fresh ingredient food place, maybe restaurant in my place, like whatever, whatever that kind of restaurant would be. There was a way that you could basically use Snapchat to get like at the counter could get a discount because you went to my gym. It was really, really innovative. And I never ended up like deploying it because whatever, I decided there wasn't enough people at Snapchat, but like it was ahead of its time. When you think about QR codes and stuff like that, for me, Snapchat was ahead of its time. So anyway, it's not even what I meant to talk about, but since we were talking about it. All right, Jimmy, let's get over to the FDA and AI making drugs. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So there's been a couple of recent advancements. So the FDA finally approved, or this is their first approval to move an AI designed drug to animal trials, right? So in the grand scheme of the pharmaceutical process, this is extremely fast. When has AI been mainstream? Okay, so we'll say 2022, 2020 or 2017, maybe. And now there's an FDA approved for animal trials drug that's been AI designed. It's only a few years. Sometimes drugs take decades. To get into to mass production
and billions of
now.
dollars.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so there's a couple of stories here that I'm kind of looking at. One is so the FDA story is about a conglomerate of designers basically went through their design process. And let me see if I can bring up that information here. Yeah, so it's a group called Certara, and they developed a drug development software that is that's AI based to help run through all of these permutations, right? Which makes things extremely fast and extremely cheap when it comes to developing possible, different molecule combinations to create this drug. And so their software is used by biotech groups like Shortening and Recursion Pharmaceuticals to determine how well an experimental drug might be absorbed, distributed, or trigger toxic side effects and things like that. So essentially, once they had the drug, they could do all of these permutations to see how well which of these drug designs were going to be ready to move on, or be presented to the FDA for sign off for animal testing and things like that. Excuse me. But what the drug is for is cancer. It's a cancer drug candidate. Sorry, that took a hard time to come out there. But essentially, it took them only 18 months to get this candidate when the industry average is 42 months. So they broke it down to more than half the amount of time to just get to the candidate level and then present it to the FDA. So all of these procedures and processes could potentially just be cut down by half the amount of time. And for something like cancer, that makes a lot of sense and is very hopeful. Now, we'll say a sister story to this is that the Penn State has also created their own AI to help in drug development as well. And what's interesting about this one is that they use two different types of models to go through this process. So they created something called AMP diffusion. So they use diffusion in their primary model to create a whole bunch of different peptide sequences, right? And they generated 50 1,000 different possibilities. And they used another AI tool that they call Apex 1.1 that was developed by De La Fuente Lab to essentially pare down, right? Carve away the highest potentials, and then they got two different candidates out of that. So we're seeing both in the private sector pharmaceutical development as well as on the university academic side of doing drug development and these molecule combinations and things like that. So very exciting to see that multiple industries or multiple sectors are developing their own systems. I think the UPenn AI combination is very interesting in the fact that they're using the diffusion-based AI technology to develop these models that have a direct determination of what they're generating, these peptide sequences and things like that. So hopefully we'll see some more coming out of that, out of those sectors. And as with anything in AI, this is the worst it'll ever be. And we hopefully will see more and more cures and treatments come out from that. Now it is guessed that once it goes on to animal trials, before we actually get these kind of drugs available to us, is a 18 to 36 month window, right? So we'll probably not see anything for a couple more years that we can actually have a doctor prescribe to us, but that is that's a shortening of a time span that used to be decades.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was talking about a guy I know. He's the CEO of TrialB, and they help people get in more human trials, or at least be aware of them for all sorts of different reasons. And I was just saying before we did the live show that I was excited about this too, because of all the good work they do at TrialB, obviously. But to your point, yeah, it'll be a few years, maybe 2-3 years of animal trials, and then additional, there's different series of human trials that need to happen as well. And this is all for all good reason. But we also went through a pandemic only a couple of years ago, and it's easy to forget how quickly we needed to move production of vaccines or potential solutions for COVID through that process very, very fast. And if you remember, there was we had to suspend some normal processes, right? Otherwise it would have taken years to get to some sort of solution. So you can see pretty quickly how what you're talking about, Jimmy, too, also can really help us. Yeah, this is the normal process, and it should be, right? This is the reason. There's a reason it takes as long as it does, but this should not only shorten the entire overall process by years and billions of dollars, but also, should we be up against another thing like a global pandemic, then it gives me hope too that we'll be able to use AI even more so to do those 50,000 calculations to come down with the two potential ones. And if that's happening in rapid fire through what Penn State and others are doing, I mean, quite literally can save millions of lives, by getting a solution out faster. So it's all very, very promising to me. And we've talked about this on the show before, right? Just the idea of what AlphaGo or AlphaFold 3, not Go. That's a game. AlphaFold 3 and what Google is doing there is just really, really encouraging with the proteins and everything else, protein synthesis and stuff like that. So, Andy, anything to add on that end? No, he says no.
Go to OpenAI.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, obviously, was I mentioned at the top of the show was OpenAI. So there was some news that came out in the last couple of days, and basically OpenAI's job platform is going to launch in mid 2026. It directly targets LinkedIn's core business model. And it says it's not. This is a perplexity search I did on this because I wanted a bigger topic here. I'll get into in a second. But for the LinkedIn, it's not just about the job listings. It's about creating AI-powered talent ecosystem that could fundamentally change how professional network and recruitment function. The platform will use AI to match candidates with businesses and include a dedicated track for local businesses and governments, potentially offering more intelligent matching than traditional keyword based systems. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I've been in and worked around and trained hundreds upon hundreds of people on Sales Navigator. It's a wonderful tool, but it's a walled garden. And Sales Navigator doesn't want to play with other people. They know what they have and what they've built. And obviously they've built it on their data as well as their job listings, right? That side of it as well, because this is on the jobs platform side of LinkedIn. There's a recruiter version of LinkedIn. They're deep in these areas. So if you can get something that has all the power of the AI and what OpenAI can potentially do, and it can go and find my connections and understand how I might be connected either geographically or through Andy or Jimmy to some other position or whatever. And it also has the jobs part to it. You can see pretty quickly how this could become a problem if LinkedIn doesn't continue to innovate on their side and build AI, which they are, by the way, into their platform. Now, I think that's the news that came out. But what it made me think of is that, like, yeah, but okay, they're talking about a potential jobs platform, AI killer, or LinkedIn killer. What about all the other areas that OpenAI is either openly or secretly basically said they're going to do? So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Number one, the browser wars, right? OpenAI is preparing to launch an AI-powered web browser in the coming weeks. Again, Perplexity is saying this off of GB Hackers and some other sources. We'll see. Built on Google's own Chromium code base. So we were just talking about that, Andy, right? Like, they can use the Chromium code base in order to build their own search web browser. It's a direct challenge to Google's Chrome market dominance. It could significantly impact Google's advertising revenue stream, which accounts for nearly 75% of Alphabet's income. Just think about that. Alphabet is a mega company, and their advertising revenue stream accounts for 75%. That's an unfathomable amount of money that obviously Google wants to protect. So the browser will, it says, what we think it'll do, it'll have AI agent, operator AI agent already built in. That's going to be a big part of it. It's going to have native ChatGPT interface, eliminating the need to navigate to separate websites. It'll have agentic behavior where AI acts on behalf of users rather just than providing information. So really, really interesting. Now that's just one of them. Let's go into another one. Social media platform. OpenAI is secretly developing a social media platform that resembles X, formerly Twitter, with an internal prototype already under testing. This is coming from The Verge. The platform integrates ChatGPT's image generation capabilities with social feed functionality, potentially creating a unique AI native social experience. And of course, this will only fan the flames between Elon Musk. Well, I don't know if it's between Elon Musk and Sam Altman, or it's just Elon Musk versus anybody, because Sam is usually like, it's disappointing, it is, we're moving on, but obviously this would be a direct competitor to not just X but other platforms as well, like what Meta has and what Google tried to do many years ago and stopped. So we'll have to see where that nets out with social media. Now we get into CRMs. Well, there was a proof of concept done in a closed meeting in Japan that I think Carl shared me on and said, get a load of this, and did not seem to be AI doctored. And it was essentially somebody at a private closed session that OpenAI was doing as a proof of concept, showing a CRM inside of ChatGPT. And we're like, that's interesting. That's curious. And now they've come out and said, like, that's probably more POC about what they believe can happen and trying to encourage other people to go and build those solutions than perhaps maybe OpenAI building themselves. But if they can show a POC, they can certainly try to take a stab out of that. Now, OpenAI, ChatGPT has been working quite a bit with HubSpot, and there's more and more integrations on that side, which is only going to put more and more pressure on Salesforce to open up their wall garden a little bit more, and it may force them to play. Maybe they'll decide that they can do it on their own with Agentforce, but yet another way to do it. And I would say the last one before I get all your guys' feedback on this, just as I'm throwing these all out there, they've come out and talked about the Microsoft 365 competitor, the Office competitor. Right? What would that be? Well, they've already started with Canvas and they already have inline editing and they're getting better. Although I think none of us would agree that like they're phenomenal at creating slides, but that's probably just a matter of time. We know it can create CSVs and it can probably go a lot farther in terms of sheet editing or Excel editing, that kind of stuff. So really, what's to stop OpenAI from having their own office suite, for lack of a better term. So that's social media, CRMs, office suite, LinkedIn killer. Like that's, I think
You're
that's the
missing a big
conversation.
one. You're missing
Yeah,
a
go
big
ahead.
one. I have to add one. So you remember just a couple days ago, Alibaba announced that they had they're in the process of domestically manufacturing AI inference chips. Well, big news this week: OpenAI and Broadcom have partnered together for an AI inference chip. It'll be
Oh,
used
right.
by OpenAI exclusively. Okay, so now you've got this juggernaut, which is OpenAI, still a private company, right? This is just a private company that's involved in all of these aspects of what was the last valuation of OpenAI? It's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And I don't even know, when you add these elements, all the different ways that they can monetize the platform and what eventually, many billions of users out there who will be all using this same platform and taking advantage of all the different things that you've just recited. The value of this company is at the $1 trillion levels ultimately, right?
Mm.
Nvidia's at 4 trillion, Apple's at 3. I mean, that's the kind of player that OpenAI is, and yet we don't see that. Amazing. This is in a couple of years, right? In a few years from when OpenAI was this sort of nonprofit, open source kind of thing that was happening, now suddenly it's one of the most valuable companies in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing up the chip. It was on here and I totally went right by it. And they said that's a $10 million investment right there. And that's also a 2026 deployment. So they say. So just think about that, of what they're saying, like the OpenAI, the LinkedIn one, the jobs thing, that's 2026, the chips 2026, perhaps the social media 2026, imminent on the web browser, right? The search in the web browser. That's probably before the end of the year. We'll see if we get another 10 days or 12 days of OpenAI Christmas again. I think it was pretty popular for them last year. I would be shocked if they did not do that again. And so if they are, well, we're sitting in September. They're already thinking about the things they're going to line up for those 12 days of OpenAI, whatever. Because I think it got us talking. We did live shows on it every single day. Pretty genius of them to do that. So I would expect them to do that again and it not to be a one-off. So as they're lining up to the end of this year, I think it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, they're definitely making sure that they are much, much more than ChatGPT. They're going to be a
By
platform.
the way, the trickle down of that value is accruing to the small group of advanced AI engineers that make up these companies. Right. So, the web, when it came out, and all of the web companies and the SaaS companies minted multimillionaires. What's happening right now with the scale of the valuation climb that's happening within small groups? I mean, OpenAI doesn't have the number of employees that Microsoft does, right? It has a small group, but those people own a portion of that, each of them, and we're minting billionaires here.
Yeah.
There's just an untold number of new billionaires happening because of AI.
I wonder with that too, when Zuck was going around and poaching people, and I mean, look, they willingly went. So you say what you want about it. Competition's competition. People left and went to Meta for whatever reason. He put a big enough number in front of them. But you have to wonder, for people leaving OpenAI who may have been there early enough, to your point, Andy, to have
Equity.
What's it called? Part of the company, right?
Yeah, stock options.
Stock options, right? That you'd have to be thinking to yourself, like, I'm not going anywhere, because once this thing hits, I'm set, I'm good, So it's curious why people move around, or maybe Meta was giving the same kind of thing. I don't really know, but the behind closed doors type stuff. But it is interesting, because I'm with you. If I was with OpenAI, I'd be like, I think I'm going to stick with OpenAI for just a bit longer. and I think I'm going to be just fine. I won't have to worry about much after that. So anyway, I think but look, it's really interesting. I mean, ultimately with this conversation, it's like, it's really interesting to me because we talk about these individual. Today, it's just the jobs thing with OpenAI, and tomorrow it'll be another one. But we usually talk about them in isolation, because it's the news of the day or whatever. And what this really brought to mind to me is like, okay, hold on, rewind. Here's all the other things OpenAI already said, or pretty much has already said they're thinking about or working on. Never mind just this jobs board. That's just the distraction of the week. Like, they're building something much, much, much bigger. And yes, maybe LinkedIn is square in their sights, but so are some of the other big players out there, including the CRMs. And we'll have to see. Maybe HubSpot feels that way, and they're like, yeah, we're going to get in bed with OpenAI and get our integrations and our MCP connectors going as strong and as hard as we can, because it's protective for what HubSpot is doing. If OpenAI can just connect and make that easy. And by the way, it's not that easy right now. I say that all the time. Like, the action side ChatGPT are honestly, I feel a little horrendous. Like, they just don't work the way you think they're supposed to work. That would be Google Drive, HubSpot. I've used all of them. I don't know. Maybe people in the chat can tell me they've had a different experience, but it hasn't been great for me. So there's a lot of work to be done on the smoothness and the easy and the user experience of like just being in ChatGPT and being like, oh, let me pull in that quick CRM thing. And it's like, this is what's going on with, John Doe, and you're like, oh, okay, great. I didn't have to go anywhere. To my experience, at least right now, you would still rather go to HubSpot 100 times out of 100. It's going to annoy you less, and you're going to find your answer faster. So until they kind of fix that kind of bottleneck, it's not really there yet. Andy, you got something to share? I see it on the screen here.
Yeah, I wanted to share this.
Sorry.
Oh, get that up there. Okay.
Sorry about
So
that.
I'm talking about robots. Why? Because Melania is all about the robots, right? Yesterday, there was a meeting hosted by Melania. I hesitate to even use it. The news actually said Trump. They referred to her as Trump in their thing, which is okay. Anyway, so Melania hosted this thing that included the major players from AI. Sam Altman was there, Tim Cook from Apple, Sundar from Google, all the major players, with the exception of Elon Musk. But he posted on X that he was invited but couldn't attend. That was a little face-saving thing there, I think. But anyway, the whole purpose of that was to focus on AI in education. But the tagline that comes into the news is, Melania said, the robots are here. That was her takeaway on AI in education. Well, so I wanted to talk about robots. We talk about humanoid robots and the ability of an embodied AI to actually work like a teammate human in physical space. But I wanted to shift our attention with this display to what's already happened over the course of the last couple decades in industrial automation, which is industrial robots. And this is a map of who the major players of the installed industrial robots are. And I thought it was really an interesting takeaway. The whole red section up here is all Japan. Okay. And Epson, I said, Epson. But if you've ever looked at a printer and said, okay, that thing is grabbing the paper, just one sheet, and it's bringing that thing, and then it's putting the print heads all across in exactly the right way. That's what industrial automation is like. It's basically manipulating parts and tools in order to put something together. This one over here, so they apparently have a whole range of large-scale industrial robotics. And then Fanuc is used by Panasonic to assemble 2 million TVs each month. Okay, so a fully automated system, very few humans in the assembly of televisions that have become a very low cost but very high tech thing these days. And then you have a Swiss company, ABB, that has 13% of the industrial robotics market. And then down here, Kuka. This is the major player in automotive. They're used by BMW, GM, Ford, and Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi.
And let me add something really quick on Kuka. If you live in Central Florida and you follow theme park news and stuff like that, you know who Kuka is, because the Kuka arm is the main ride robot that moves you through when you do like the Harry Potter experience and you're in a thing and it moves you like 360 degrees and spins you around. Those are Kuka arms, and they're very, very popular, and they ride on a track, but the arm can manipulate the cart that you're sitting in all sorts of different ways to make it feel like you're flying and everything else. So when I see Kuka, I just think like Universal, Disney, like it's a big, big deal. And that's not even that, you know what I mean? That's not even that part of what you're talking about. But yeah, anyway, just want to
Yeah, it's a great, local reference to something I'd never heard of. I wouldn't have
Kuka
heard of
arm,
Kuka ever before. Now, I believe that this 32% in gray includes a lot of smaller Chinese companies that automate all of the manufacturing that's over there in China. But it could be that China uses Japanese robotics manufacturers, but not for long, right? I think one of the open questions about this, which came from statistic data, if you see down there at the bottom, is where's China on this map? Because China is the manufacturing hub of the world. And I'm sure they're using many industrial robots in that process.
That's very cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that breakdown. That's a nice little chart. And also like I'm with you. The first thing I thought is Epson. and then you said it. And then I wouldn't have noticed that like that whole first section there was all although the rest section was all Japan, but probably also not as shocking to see that, since a lot of that technology comes from there. But I also didn't know Kuka was German. So there you go. I learned something too. I didn't know where it came from. I just knew the term. So yeah, next time you go to ride some of those fun vehicles, or rides rather, in Hollywood or Disney or otherwise, you might be sitting on a Kuka arm and hoping it does what it's supposed to do on the ride. Okay. Do we have any other stories that we're going to get to? We're getting to the wrap up here for Friday. While you guys are thinking about that, Jimmy and Andy, let me circle back really quick to She Leads AI, because I apologize, I didn't have this up before. She Leads AI unites accomplished women to advance AI for global prosperity. And this October 11th through 14th in Salt Lake City, they're hosting their first ever in-person event, the Create Conference. If you care about AI in the future and you are a woman, it's worth the effort to show up in person. So at Create, women leaders will share what actually is happening and working within AI adoption on a personal level across organizations and across industries, not the stuff you see on LinkedIn, but what's really, really going on. So like I told you guys, you can save $100 by signing up with the code DAIS100, and that'll save you $100 for that. And you would go to createconference2025.com, and I will put all of that in the chat right now, so that everybody has it if they would like it. But yeah, go support She Leads AI. Go support the Create Conference, even if you can't make it there, or you're a guy, or whatever, and it's not like necessarily the right conference for you personally. There's all sorts of ways that you can support what they're doing. We obviously love Anne here on the show and what she's building. So any ways to support Anne and her work, obviously in the Create Conference, are greatly appreciated. So we just want to make sure we brought that up really quick. All right, last thoughts on any other news we want to wrap up for this week before we say goodbye to this week and we're off to next week. Jimmy, Andy, any last news or thoughts here?
I got a quick one.
Sure.
It's another AI and science. I'll always have those ready for you.
Right.
So just a few days ago, IBM and NASA announced that they developed an AI model to predict when we're going to have large solar flares. And the reason they did this is because solar emissions, like a solar flare, could potentially be like an EMP and wipe out mass swaths of technology and things like that. So they got together and they said, okay, so this model called Surya, a Sanskrit word, will be able to help them predict far enough in advance of when these next very large solar flares are supposed to happen, and then hopefully that'll allow us to put in protections or redevelop new technologies and things like that. So just a little bit more AI and science news for you.
I love it. Andy?
One last one. Meta. So I still, it boggles me. I don't know how I've ever run across Meta in anything AI, but there's apparently a lot of people around the world who use Meta AI. And Llama 4 is, like a very competent model. It didn't impress the world or become a leading frontier model, but it's open source. And they're working on Llama 5, and they're considering integrating Google and OpenAI models into its apps in the interim until Llama 5 gets there. So that's interesting. And remember, uh, you just referenced it, Brian. Zuckerberg of Meta is trying to poach the very top talent and spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases for an individual, right, to try to get them away from the other players and bring that competitive advantage into his own organization. The other thing that's interesting is that the company is using Anthropic internally for coding, as many companies are, right? Because Claude Code is better. It's an agentic coding assistant in your desktop that, when combined with Cursor and so on, makes it much, much easier and faster and more comprehensive. One of the things that I didn't really understand about Claude Code until I started looking into it at Carl's suggestion is that it can operate in your desktop or in your computing system, not just developing code. It can go into your file system and organize that. It can do all kinds of agentic tasks for you right inside your computer, including launch a browser and do stuff. So it's a very complete system inside your computer, not something that you call upon from externally as you would an Anthropic server.
Yeah, by the way, Nate Jones just had a video out saying that he feels like people are just now waking up to Codex from ChatGPT and saying that it's on par with Claude Code. I can't speak to that, and we don't have enough time to probably talk about it today, but interesting. Go check out Nate Jones's fairly recent TikTok about that, because I always find when he
and I just saw yesterday, I watched a review of, or I think I read it, a review of a comparison between ChatGPT 5 as a coding assistant and Gemini 2.5 Pro. And it had 5 different coding tasks that had to be done. And 4 of the 5 were done better. This is a subjective evaluation by an expert coder, but 4 of the 5 were done better by ChatGPT 5 over Gemini 2.5 Pro. But remember, that's 2.5. When Gemini 3 comes out, watch out, because Google has a rocket ship.
Google kind of already does our rocket ship. I'm impressed with Google the last couple months for sure. My daughter on her own was using Notebook LM yesterday. I was very proud to see that. As an AI dad and a girl dad, I was happy to see that she was seeking out and understood that that was a tool that could help her for what she was trying to do for studying yesterday with her buddy. So anyway,
Gareth just asked if you could see that review. It's in Medium. That's where I read it.
Okay.
So if you have a subscription to Medium, or just, you don't have to have a subscription, but I believe it's not a paid subscriber only an analysis. It's a short thing comparing that, but see if you can find it on Medium.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Gareth wanted to know why these shows are in an hour, and I jokingly said because we're tired. But no, this show was always, I'll just say this to everybody who's not in the chat right now. The shows were always sort of intended to be 30-minute shows, and we let them creep over 2 years right up and over the hour. And I think, at least on my side, there's been an intent to try to pull it back and wrap it up within the 40s, which we're coming up on right now, and wrap up the conversations there. But, they'll go over an hour when they should. And we have more people on the show. Sometimes that's also a very easy way. If there's like 5 or 6 of us on here and everybody wants to say their piece, well, then sometimes it goes over an hour that way too. So we'll keep doing it. We don't have a hard and fast rule on it, but it's just the 3 of us. It's been us most of this week. So we will just say that's it for this week. I was about to say that's all, folks. That's all, folks. Tomorrow we'll have the Conundrum episode. Remember, that goes out on Spotify and our Apple podcast platforms and wherever else you would happen to listen to podcasts. So go check that out. It's a good one this week. I say that every week, but it's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one. So go check that out in the morning. That'll come out at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. Newsletter goes out at 8 a.m. Eastern on Sunday morning. So you still have plenty of time to sign up for that newsletter. It's free. Go to thedailyAIshow.com in order to sign up for it. And last but not least, if you want to join us in the conversations and you can't be here for the live, or you just want to keep talking, like Garrett's like, why don't we go longer? Well, one way that we're able to do that is through our free community. So you can go to the Daily AI Show community.com. That will take you to a free Slack sign up page, and you can join us in there. So that's a great way to keep the conversation going well beyond our thing. And see, with all that, I went over 50 anyway. So Jimmy, take us out for the weekend.
Aloha.